Whisky Hunter here. Welcome back, hunters. Thanks for joining me for another episode. We're going to cover some tips, a hunt, a review, and a story about a distillery today. The first thing I want to talk to you about is, as far as tips, is fake bottles. If you look on eBay, you will notice that there are people that sell empty bottles. If you check your local Craigslist, chances are you're going to see people selling empty bottles. My local Craigslist a few days ago, I saw a Pappy 15 or 20 for sale. $200, empty bottle. You'll see this with Macallan's. You'll see it with Pappy Van Winkle's, the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. They're in such high demand and the secondary pricing is so high on them that there are these people that will buy these bottles, fill it with God knows what, repackage it, and try to sell it to somebody that's unknowing or doesn't know what to look for. So I'd like to share some of the things I do when I'm buying from a private seller or I find a deal on Craigslist to make sure I'm getting an authentic bottle. One of the things I'm looking for is beating. What beating is real bourbon, real whiskey. When you shake that bottle, it's going to foam a little bit and settle down. If it is not 40 proof plus whiskey, if it's not whiskey, it's not going to do that. Now let me show you an example of that. We've got a bottle of Macallan 18 here. In fact, this is a Fine Oak 18, not available in the United States. That's another hunt that I'll tell you about. And I'm dressed for hunting today. I'm going hunting after we're done with this review. So here's a bottle of 18. This is a real bottle. It's got the hologram on the side, which is what Macallan does to help authenticate it because there are so many fakes. But what you can do is if you take a bottle of whiskey and you shake it vigorously, you'll see that the beading settles down immediately at the top of the bottle. Let me do that again. You see how it settles down. If this was fake, it would be foamed up like a head of beer in the neck of that bottle. That's a sure sign you're dealing with a fraudulent product. The other thing is the wrap around the label. You'll notice on fake bottles, and I urge you to Google this, you'll notice that it's crinkled when it's fake. It's very hard to duplicate that smooth wrap of the aluminum around the neck. There's a little crinkle here, but that's normal. It's very evident when it's faked and put on. So look for that. Of course, I thought I had this in here. Well, you can also buy from wine stores a cap that you heat with a hair dryer that shrink wraps around the cap to help stop oxidation, and they do that to wine sometimes, so you really have to look. But shake that bottle. The other tip I want to talk about is toppers. What a topper is a cover to your whiskey glass, your Glencairn or whatever kind of glass you use. There's one thing that likes whiskey more than we do, and that's bugs. You go outside, you set your whiskey down, you'll notice there are gnats. There's going to be something trying to fly into your whiskey. So you want to cover it. Or if you're going to let it sit out for a while, which I recommend you do on 1 minute for 1 year of age, you want to cover your whiskey. So there's a couple things you can use. I was at a flea market and came across a guy that cut cue balls. And these were really cheap. I bought these years ago. At the time, I didn't know I was going to put them on a whiskey glass, but they fit great right over the top of a whiskey glass and will keep the gnats and bugs out of your whiskey and keep your aromatics in while it sits out forever how long. The other thing that works real well that I happen to have on this glass here is a watch timepiece or watch cover. This is a 50 mil cover. I'm going to put a link to it in below in my section of where you can get this on Amazon, and there's other sources as well. It's very cheap. It's, I don't know, 70 cents a piece, maybe 50, maybe 80. It depends where you get them. But these are concave, and they sit perfect on a Glencairn glass, just perfect. So that's I put these on all my stemware and glassware that I have sitting out in my cabinet, and I'll show you that at some later review. That's another hunt for I like glassware. Let's set this down. The one other thing that I happen to do when I get older bottles, I don't want them oxidizing. If they're decanters and they're porcelain, the corks never fit right because it's glass is made differently than porcelain. It's handmade, so it's going to be an odd shape. This is Parafilm. I can also throw a link up to this. Parafilm is used for grafting of plants. However, it's kind of a stretchy film material, and you can cut sections off of this, and it's really not a sticker. It stretches around almost like electrical tape, and you can wrap the neck and the cork of your bottle, and this will help preserve your whiskey, especially if you're going to get older whiskeys. I would highly recommend wrapping this. Should you ship a whiskey bottle to anyone, yourself, whatever the case is, I recommend you wrap it with Parafilm, and it will stop it in case leaking occurs. So those are my tips of the day. Now we come to my hunt. June 15th, 2015. There's a store that I go by. I went by 100 times since I've lived out where I'm at. And I never went into it. It's not your typical liquor store. It's more a party store, and I just never thought I'd go in there. I decided to one day. So I stopped by the liquor store, and you know, he's got bottles on his rack behind. There's a lot of different things, and I can't really get there because it's behind the counter. So I start talking. The guy introduces himself to me. His name's Perez, and I'm talking about different bourbon and whiskey, and he can see that I know what I'm talking about. He invites me to come around the counter, and I couldn't really reach the upper shelves, so he gave me a milk crate, and I climbed up on there, and I started moving bottles. I go, "Do you mind, if I move your bottles around?" He said, "That's fine." And so I dug through the bottles, and I came up with 3 bottles. And I said, "Can I get some sort of deal? There's 3 bottles here." And he cut me a deal. So what I came out of that with was this. Remember, this is June 2015. This Macallan Fine Oak 21 year. I'm not a big Fine Oak. I am a Macallan, huge fan of Macallan Sherry, but I couldn't pass this up. 21 year Fine Oak in this older box. As you can see, this was $189. I think the price on this 21 year now, I'm guessing $500, $599. I don't know, something like that. But at $189, I knew that was a hell of a deal. So, and there was a sticker on it. It's fallen off since. The other bottle I pulled off, and of course he started wiping the dust off of it when I put it on the counter, and I had to stop him from doing that. The other bottle he had up there, and I brought up the Parafilm because I wrapped this bottle with it, is an old dumpy Highland Park 18. As a matter of fact, here's the price that is on it at that time. And I, of course, bought 3 bottles, so I asked them for a deal. This 18 year is bottled, I'd say, in 2003. So that means it was distilled in 1985, and there's a good chance Paxaret was used in this. And if you go to my blog, which is thewhiskeyhunter.net, I have a post about what Paxaret is and how it was used and banned in 1989 in sherry casks. You can read about it there. But this is, like I said, probably distilled in 1985. It's 100% Spanish oak. It's a 45% first fill Oloroso cask. He gave me that bottle for $70. What am I going to say? So I left with that bottle. The third bottle I got, which is what brings us to our review today, is this Aberlour 18-year-old. Now this has been open a year and a half, I'd say. You can see it's about half full. And this was $70. And this is what we're reviewing, like I said. So that this Aberlour 18 is, a ruby gold color. Kind of reddish brown. Which leads you to my story of a distillery, Aberlour. It was built by James Fleming in 1879 and first distilled whiskey in 1880. James Fleming died in 1895 at 65 years old. He was still participating in the distillery then. He was a local tenant farmer before he built the distillery. It is said late at night in the old parts of the distillery that were built, when it's quiet, you can hear the sounds of James Fleming. And James Fleming, being a local tenant farmer, which is what his advocation was before he became a distiller, it is said the sounds of plow teams are heard pulled by oxen when things are quiet. I don't know if it's true. I've never been to the distillery, but stranger things have happened. Let's talk about this dram. Here's our color here. We're drinking out of a Louis Trey glass. This was another hunt that took me about a year and a half to find. Louis Trey glass, which is of course cognac. Lost but not forgotten. Out of my price range today. Take a look at the legs of this. It's an 18-year-old, so you expect the legs to form slow. That's a lot of years in a cask. This has changed quite a bit from the time I opened it to today. The nose. I want to say the nose when I first opened this is like a lot different. When I first opened this 18-year-old, I expected a lot more from it. Aberlour 18-year-old juice. It's not the Abuna, which is cask strength, 60% ABV, sherry, in your face, powerful sherry bomb. This is 43% ABV. I don't think I said it's a Speyside. It's 100% malted barley, ex-bourbon and ex-Oloroso sherry casks. It was really spicy when I opened it. It was acerbic, sharp, biting. It was not something that I really enjoyed nosing. The sherry was there, but it had sulfur like you sometimes get with older sherries. There's fruits, but it was overpowered by this acerbic, sharp, aromatic. I didn't really like it. Today, it's a very soft spice. That bite is gone, long gone. There's no sharpness anymore. It's a rounded dram now. It's sweet. There's honey, butterscotch, orchard fruits, very soft peaches and apples. It's a great nose now. The palate. The palate today is a lot different than it was when I opened it. The palate was astringent, had that strong spice. The sherry was like leather, like a leather tanning shop. It was really abrasive. It was bitters, tangy orange peel. Now it's creamy, balanced. Navel oranges, sweet navel oranges. The orchard fruit, the peaches, the soft peach and apricots and sherry, the toffee, there's toffee there, caramel, baking cinnamon spice, soft, sweet cinnamon and honey. There's no bite left to this anymore. Let's try it with a little water in it, shall we? See how that's changed it? This is only 43%. I wouldn't recommend more than a drop or two. It brings out a little more apple to me, but doesn't really change it much on the nose. It's a little fruitier with water. I, again, wouldn't pour more than a drop in, and I'd always drink it neat. And I like putting a drop of water in almost everything, a drop or two, to just change the experience when I'm sipping whiskey. The finish is long, the bitterness is gone, and the toffee sweetness stays. It's really good. This bottle is probably, though I haven't priced it in a while, maybe 100 to 120. It's very affordable. 18-year-old. Like I said, maybe this bottle, I don't know, was the end of a cask, or for whatever reason, it was very in your face at first, and now it's a different dram, and it's unbelievable. So if you get something like this, let it sit for a couple months, and I think it's gonna change to be a hell of a whiskey. I'd rate it back then a 78. Today, I'd rate it at an 87. It's a different whiskey and much, much better. Thanks for joining me. Please, if you'd like to see more reviews, more tips, more hunting stories, I'll take you for a tour of my collection. This cabinet was the first cabinet I bought to house some whiskey. And at one time, there were only about 4 or 5 bottles here. This is just my open bottles. Yeah. Wow, it was a long time ago. Please subscribe. There's a little, I think it's a bell or next to the subscription button you can click. It'll advise you when a new review comes out, which I'll be trying to do a couple a week. Like if you liked it, and please share this with your friends. Again, salute. Thank you for joining me. Till the next we meet.